You wake up. You check your phone before your feet touch the floor. 7 new emails. One of them has the subject line, "Quick call before 9. Your stomach tightens. You haven't even had coffee yet, and your day already belongs to someone else. This isn't a bad week. This is every week. You got a raise last year. You got another one this year. And somehow you're still doing the same routine, still checking that same phone, still waiting for a version of your life that never quite arrives. Why? Here's the uncomfortable answer. The problem was never your income. The problem is that the entire system around you was built to keep you exactly where you are. Think about what actually happens if everyone stopped working. Factories go quiet. Shelves go empty. The economy that depends on your labor to produce value simply stops. So the system, quietly and structurally, needs most people to keep showing up. Not because anyone signed a document saying so. Because growth, profit, and GDP are mathematically built on your continued output. Full financial freedom for the masses was never the design. It was always the exception. But knowing that isn't enough. You need to see the specific mechanisms that keep you locked in, because they don't feel like chains. They feel like choices. The first one is consumerism, and it has a real origin story. In the 1920s, a man named Edward Bernays, who happened to be Sigmund Freud's nephew, took his uncle's ideas about the unconscious mind and applied them to advertising. Bernays didn't sell products by listing their features. He sold identity. He convinced people that buying things was how you expressed who you were, how you signaled status, how you proved you'd made it. That single shift, from "I need this" to "this is who I am," rewired an entire century of spending behavior. You inherited that wiring. Every time you feel a pull toward a purchase that has nothing to do with survival, you're feeling the echo of a strategy that's 100 years old. This idea has an even older cousin. Back in 1899, economist Thorstein Veblen coined the term conspicuous consumption to describe spending whose real purpose isn't the object itself, but the status the object signals to everyone watching. Veblen was writing about the wealthy elite of his time. Bernays, 2 decades later, figured out how to sell that same impulse to everyone else. Between the two of them, they built the psychological foundation for a century of people working overtime to buy things that exist mainly to be seen. The second mechanism is something psychologists call the hedonic treadmill. In 1971, researchers Philip Brickman and Donald Campbell described a pattern where humans quickly adapt to improvements in their circumstances and return to a baseline level of satisfaction. A famous follow-up study by Brickman, Dan Coates, and Ronnie Janoff-Ballman in 1978 compared lottery winners to a control group and found that within a relatively short period, the winners were not measurably happier than people who hadn't won anything. Your income goes up, your satisfaction resets. So you chase the next raise, the next upgrade, the next milestone, and the treadmill just keeps moving under your feet at the same speed you're running. Ask yourself honestly, what was the last purchase that actually changed how you felt for longer than a month? The third mechanism is what happens when the first two combine with debt. You get promoted. Your income jumps. Instead of banking the difference, you upgrade your phone, then your car. Then you sign a mortgage that stretches 25 or 30 years into the future. Suddenly you're not just working because you want to. You're working because you have to. Robert Kiyosaki, in his book Rich Dad Poor Dad and later in Cash Flow Quadrant, mapped this out clearly. He described 4 groups: employees who trade hours for income, self-employed people who trade hours for slightly more income, business owners who build systems that make money without their constant presence, and investors who make money work on its own. Most people spend their entire lives in the first quadrant, and lifestyle debt is one of the main reasons they never leave it. You can't take a risk, switch careers, or walk away from a toxic job when a missed paycheck means a missed mortgage payment. Let's walk through what this actually looks like in a real life. Say you're 28. You get a solid raise. Instead of investing the extra income, you finance a newer car because you've earned it. 2 years later, you buy a house at the top of your budget because that's what people your age are supposed to do. Now your monthly obligations have grown to match your monthly income almost exactly. You're earning more than you ever have, and you have less freedom than you've ever had. That's not a coincidence. That's lifestyle creep, and researchers who study consumer debt have a name for what it produces. People who look wealthy on the outside and are financially fragile on the inside. Thomas Stanley and William Danko documented the opposite pattern in their research for The Millionaire Next Door, finding that many actual millionaires live below their means, drive older cars, and avoid exactly the signaling behavior that Bernays' advertising model trained you to crave. Notice the trap doesn't announce itself. Nobody hands you a contract that says, "Sign here to work until you're 65. It arrives disguised as reasonable decisions, one at a time. A slightly nicer apartment, a slightly newer car, a slightly bigger house than you strictly needed. Each choice feels justified in isolation. Stacked together over a decade, they quietly build a monthly obligation you can't walk away from, no matter how much you'd like to. Here's the counterintuitive twist. You've probably been told that the way out is to work harder, climb higher, and earn more. But if income alone solved this, high earners wouldn't be some of the most financially anxious people in the country. Doctors, lawyers, and executives with six-figure salaries end up just as trapped as anyone else, because their obligations scaled up right alongside their income. The way out isn't more income, it's time. Specifically, it's using money to buy back time, before you spend that time earning more money. So what does an actual escape route look like? Instead of accepting 30 or 40 years on this treadmill, picture a compressed 7-year path. Step 1 is aggressive saving, not to accumulate things, but to purchase optionality. Every dollar you don't spend on a lifestyle upgrade is a dollar that buys you the ability to say no. No to a toxic manager. No to a job that's quietly draining you. A cash buffer doesn't just sit there. It gives you leverage, because the person who can walk away always negotiates from a stronger position than the person who can't. This is the phase that feels the least rewarding, because you're not buying anything visible. You're buying a future decision you haven't made yet. Step 2 is using that buffer, and the time it creates, to build a skill the market actually pays a premium for. Not a hobby. A capability with real economic demand behind it. Things like applied AI tools, software development, high-level sales, marketing that can be measured in revenue, or data analysis. This is the step most people skip, because skill building without financial breathing room feels like a luxury. That's exactly why the saving in step 1 has to come first. You can't study a new skill for 3 hours a night when you're working 2 jobs to cover a car payment. Step 3 is where the compounding shows up. After 3 to 5 years of deliberately stacking a high-value skill on top of financial breathing room, the value you create per hour of work doesn't grow in a straight line. It jumps. The same person who once traded 8 hours for a fixed wage can now produce, in that same 8 hours, something worth multiples more. That jump is what finally gives you real capital to work with, not just savings, but investable capital. Step 4 is the actual transition Kiyosaki described, moving a portion of that capital out of pure labor and into ownership, buying assets, building something that keeps generating income when you're not the one clocking in. This is the step that finally moves you from the employee quadrant toward the investor and business owner quadrants, where your money, not just your hours, is doing the work. None of this erases the structural reality we started with. The broader system still benefits from most people staying on the treadmill, and it will keep selling you identity through purchases, keep resetting your satisfaction after every win, and keep offering you 30-year loans that feel like progress. But you were never asking the system to change. You were asking whether you, individually, could build an exit. And the honest answer is yes, if you stop mistaking consumption for progress and start treating time as the actual asset you're trying to buy back. So go back to this morning, phone in hand before your feet hit the floor, 7 unread emails, one of them demanding a call before 9. That moment doesn't have to define the next 30 years of your life. It can define 7. The number on your banking app was never really the problem. What you were buying with it always was.